Hi everyone! In this video we will discover everything about the microphone and digital recorder Zoom H5. It is one of the most known and best-selling microphone and handy recorder. It's very interesting to assess its quality, the pros and cons. We will look at all the features of the device. We will make some hands-on tests, indoor, outdoor, and we will also see what the competition can offer about this type of device. Just a curiosity to start off, the Zoom company was founded by a Chinese guy, Eric Yuan, that left China and moved to the United States. He began working in WebEx, that I think some of you will recognize the software that is currently used for video conferencing. WebEx was later acquired by Cisco, and some years later Yuan left the company and founded his own company, Zoom, in 2011 to produce microphone and other audio equipment. And it has been very successful so far. The Zoom H5 I think is the best mix between quality, features and price in the Zoom line. In fact, there are other options in this line, from H1 to H8, that is the top of the line, and H5 sits in the middle higher range of recorders, because it has optimal mix of functionalities. For example, it includes the same preamp circuits of H6, that is a higher end model, but is less expensive and more portable in terms of size and weight. Disclaimer: I bought the Zoom H5 by myself. I have no affiliation, nor I have been contacted by Zoom, so this review is really an independent review. Before diving into details, let me introduce a couple of accessories that I think are very interesting for the Zoom H5. The first is the H5 accessory pack that includes three things: a wired remote control, there's no Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connection, a wired remote control, a power supply. In fact, the Zoom H5 can be powered by internal batteries or by USB. In the case of USB, you can use your own PC or you can use an external power supplier. And the third thing is a dead cat, that is the stuff that you put on the mic, and it is needed to record in outdoor environments when there is wind. And the wind can ruin the recorder with its rumble on the surface of the microphone. If the wind is very strong, that cat is not enough to completely mask the rumble, and you need some more sophisticated stuff, but in general situation this is very good. The second accessory is the Movo SMM8. You can see it here, and this is used to mount the zoom on the flash speedlight shoe of the camera here. And the interesting thing about this accessory is that there is a rubber stuff here in between the two plates, and this is used to dampen the vibration, also very tiny vibration of the camera. And here I have a tip, because current mirrorless cameras have stabilized the sensor inside. They move slightly to compensate for vibration, and that produces a small noise that can be captured by a very good, very high quality recorder like our Zoom H5. So this accessory is very useful to have a clean recording. In fact, there is another option, a cheaper option, that is the Zoom HS1, that is a simple adapter this size to connect directly the camera on the hot shoe of the camera. but since it is a directly connection without any damping, you can grab some subtle noise if you have a mirrorless camera with moving sensor. Who is this device for? I think that's an interesting solution for having a single device that can do two jobs. The first is to let video shooters really improve the quality of their audio in their videos. In fact, the internal mic of the camera and the preamp circuit are not as good as the imaging part of the camera. Even if you have a very good camera costing $2,000 or euros, the quality of the audio is not on par with the quality of the image. And so an external recorder is definitely required. The second job that this type of device can do is for recording independently of the camera. So for example, if you are in a concert or if you want to record your audio for a video blog, then this is very useful because it is a very good quality and you can mount on a small table tripod. Of course, there are other type of mics for cameras. They are generally smaller than the Zoom H5, but they serve just one job. So let's look at the technical specification. The Zoom H5 can record 4 tracks, 2 from the internal microphone and 2 from external ones. In fact, you can connect 2 external microphones to the recorder. The internal microphones are in an interesting Y shape. There's a left and a right capsule, since this is a stereo mic. And they are put in this strange shape for a purpose, to receive the stereo signal, but at the same time to minimize what is called the difference of phase. In other words, the sound arriving at the right capsule and at the left capsule is at the same time. And so there are no difference between what you hear on the left and what you hear on the right side. Actually, the Zoom H5 can record 6 tracks, the 4 ones we just said, plus 2 additional ones that are backup tracks. These are tracks where the sound is the same taken from the internal microphone, but at a lower volume. And that is very useful to prevent clipping, to prevent distortion when the volume of the sound is too strong, too loud. Imagine when this happens in a ceremony like a marriage, when you will ask, please can you marry again, because my volume was set a bit too high and the recording was not so good. And so this is really a life-saving in important recording. The recording can be done with a sampling rate that is the quality of the conversion of the sound into a digital stream of bits at 44.1 kilohertz, that is a CD quality, 48 kilohertz, that is a DVD quality, or even 96 kilohertz, that is a professional quality. The file that is produced can be an MP3, so it is compressed to be smaller in size but with a loss of quality, or you can have a WAV file that has no loss of quality. Of course, it is bigger. The recording can be saved into the internal SD card. Pay attention because this recording supports the SD card just up to 32 gigabytes and not larger. Strange limitation. Or it can transmit the signal through USB to an external recorder or to your PC. You can see also here the dimension. It's about the size of an open hand, not very large. The power can be supplied by 2 internal AA batteries. If you use alkaline batteries, they will last about 10 hours to record 2 tracks. If you need to record 4 tracks, then the batteries will last slightly more than 5 hours. Of course, it's better to use rechargeable batteries. Or you can power the Zoom H5 with USB, as we have said before. Okay, now we are ready to open the box and see what is inside. Okay, here we are. What do we get in the box? Of course, the recorder, a little or not too little sponge that is used to put it on the internal mics, and it serves to attenuate the effect of the plosive consonant like TP that can disturb your recording. And you can see there's a little hole here so that you can turn the knob of the volume without having to take the sponge away. Okay, then we have two batteries. They are not rechargeable, but better than nothing, and a USB cable. Okay, so let's put the batteries into our recorder and let's see how that works. We will see all the features of our recorder. Let's start from the build quality. It is made of plastic, rigid plastic, hard plastic, while the mic are made of metal, and there are these metal bar here and here just to prevent you from turning the knobs of the volumes when you don't want to. A very interesting solution. Then you have 4 buttons to select the inputs left and right from the internal mic, 1 and 2 for the external mic. And here we have the plugs for the external mic. You can put balanced mic or unbalanced ones, and the balanced are less sensitive to noise. So if you can, please use balanced cables and balanced mic. Then on the left side you have a line out port and a headphone port, and this is very interesting because typically these type of recorders have just one output, and here we have 2 of them, so we can separately, for example, send the output to the camera to record the audio track together with the video for synchronization in post-production while listening to the audio with a headphone. This is very handy. Then the volume, plus and minus 2 buttons to adjust the volume, a USB port through which you can send in real time the recording to a PC, for example, so you cannot record to the SD card and then take the SD card to the PC and download the file. And the USB port can be used also for powering our recorder. Then this button, this lever, is for turning it on, off, and for a hold position. That means that all the buttons are locked in their position. We have seen already that there are 3 knobs for adjusting the volume of the internal mics on the 2 external mic. On the other side you can put your SD card that is not provided with the box. This is my SD card. Remember, not more than 32 gigabytes, and a menu button and a wheel for navigating the menu. And there is also very interesting, this is an input for a remote control, so you can have a remote wired remote control. Okay, so let's look at all the features of our recorder. Let's turn it on. Okay, and look that the firmware is version 2.2 to 20, and if you go to the Zoom website you just find the 2.10 firmware, so this is more updated than the official one that can be downloaded from the site. We have here, as we said before, a menu button. There is a file list menu item where you can navigate to all the files that you already recorded. You can create, of course, and delete folders to organize your files. There's an input-output menu item. This is interesting. You can set a low-cut filter, The local filter can be applied to the internal mics or to the external one or to all the 4 inputs. But very interestingly, the low cut filter is not a fixed one. You can define what is the cutoff frequency. You see from the lowest that is 80 Hertz up to 237. So you can decide which is the frequency under which the recorder will cut the sound. This is an interesting flexibility option. Then you can set a compressor or a limiter to avoid too much difference in the audio volumes. And again, here you can define a different wave of working of the limiter and of the recorder, general, vocal, drum one, where you can have different options of the curve of the compression. And again, you can apply it to internal or external mics or both. Then you can decide the phantom power. The phantom power is the power that is sent from the recorder to the mic, and you can set if the phantom power is enabled and also at which voltage. And there are 3 options: 12, 24 and 48 volts that are the typical voltage of phantom power. So very, very full featured. Also plug-in power. Plug-in power is the power for mic that are attached here. No, you can here you see there's another additional input where you can plug an external microphone so that you can bypass the internal one, and this external mic may need power as well. And so in this option you can set the plug-in power. The plug-in power is at about 5 volts. It's a lower voltage than the phantom power for the external mic. Then you can attenuate, lower the volume with this option, so that if the inputs coming from the external inputs is too high, for example, is not a mic, but it's a line output that is being put into our recorder, then you can set an attenuation. Then we have an option to set the parameters for mid-side stereo matrix. That is a way of recording multiple channels for tuning in post-production, adjusting in post-production the balance between the ambient and the stereo channel. Then you can decide the monitoring for, again, the mid-side recording. You can set the recording to mono, so combine the left and right channel into one. The line out level, we have seen before that we have a line out output. Okay, and that are all the input and output options. Then of course there is a rec recording item where you can decide the recording format, again WAV or MP3 file with a different sampling ratio and 16 or 24 bits of precision. This is the quality with which the recorder translates the sound into a file, a digital file. Then you have auto rec, that is a functionality to automatically start the recording when the sound raises above a certain threshold. Then pre-rec. Pre-rec is very interesting. That means that when you press the record button, actually the recorder takes into account 2 seconds before the pressing of the button in the recording. That is used, for example, when you do not know when exactly the sound will start, when the concert, the first note will be played, and so using this mode you will not miss any starting. of the music, for example, because when you press record, maybe it's a bit too late, but the recorder will just take the 2 seconds before of your pressing of the button. Then you can set the backup tracks, as we said in the previous part of the presentation of the mic. You can define the file name structure. You can set a counter, count up or count down for starting the registration. You can set markers for specific moments, and that's it for the rec menu item. Then play menu item, of course, to play all the sounds that you have recorded. And the interesting thing is that this recorder has a little loudspeaker on the back. It's not, of course, super quality, but it's very handy to listen to what you recorded on the field if you do not have a headphone to connect here. There are some tools. There's a tuner, for example, to tune your guitar or your bass, and you have a number of options for different notes to be used for tuning, and a metronome, again useful for music. And finally, a system menu item to set the date, time, to set the backlight, the contrast, set up what type of battery is used, if alkaline or rechargeable, because they last a different time, and you can update the firmware or you can reset to the factory settings. The SD card is used just for formatting the card, or there is an option to make a performance test to see if the card is fast enough for your recording. Typically, current SD cards are good for video, so there is really no problem for recording audio. The USB is again an utility menu item, and is used to decide if you record to internal SD card or through the USB port to your computer. The recording mode is just a choice between a stereo file, so with 2 channels, or a multi-file when you have up to 4 channels and 4 files for each channel that you are recording. And that's it for all the menu. On the LCD screen, it's a black and white LCD screen. You can see the level when you record. You see the bars from left and right. Now we are using the internal mic. Also the quality of the recording in bits, the type of file that is being used, time counter, the name of the folder on the file that is being recorded, and if it is the internal or external mic, and if there is a backup track, and the level of the batteries. And that's all. When you have finished, it also says goodbye. Let's start with the first test, a first quality test. Now I'm going to talk and you can compare the difference in quality between an internal mic in the Sony A7III. That's the camera I'm using for this video. It's a full frame camera, so a very good quality camera, and the quality coming from the Zoom H5. Now the 2 mics are on. I'm talking at about 35-40 centimeters from the mic. So audio test between the in-camera mic Sony A7III and the Zoom H5. Quality test, audio quality test. Hi again, we are now ready for an outdoor test. I am by a road in city. It's about 30 meters from where the cars are passing, and I'm at about 40 centimeters from the mics. And we are going to listen how to the different recording to understand the quality in a noisy environment, and even more important, to the directionality of these mics. Okay, so test of quality in a noisy environment. So now a few cars are passing, so we can just wait. Another car is approaching, so you can hear the noise coming from the road, the close by road, and from my voice. Okay, now in an interesting test, I'm going to turn the mics 360 degrees to test the directionality and to see, to listen how the different direction of source of sound are captured by our mics. So let's start, and I'm going to turn the camera in clockwise, and now it's 90 degrees, so I am on the left of the mics. I'm talking from about 30 centimeters of distance on the left of the mics. I'm talking on the left of the mic. Test audio test on the mic close by 30 centimeters of distance coming from the left. Then I'm going to keep on turning, and now it's 180 degrees, so the sound of my voice is coming from behind. Again, 30 centimeters of distance from the mic, sound coming from behind of the mics. So let's see what happens when a car approaches. It's coming. Okay, you can hear the different capture of sound between my voice and the road. Okay, then keep on turning. Now I am on the right of the mics, 270 degrees, so I'm talking from 30 centimeters of distance on the right of the camera. Test audio coming from 30 centimeters of distance at the right of the mics. Audio test on the right. And then we can go back to where we started. Interesting test, isn't it? Okay, and now let's try to draw some conclusions and wrap up what we have seen during the tests and the analysis of the functionalities, features, and so on. Let's try to summarize what are the main pros and cons of this model. And I would say that the first the major pro of the Zoom H5 is being able to change the mic capsule. This is really an outstanding flexibility point with comparison to the competition. Built-in stereo mic is good, but you can change with other capsule from Zoom, and that's really an advantage. Also quality of the mic, audio quality, as we have seen in the tests, is really an improvement with respect to recording the built-in mic of the camera in terms of quality, directionality, and also the build quality of the Zoom is really good, and so we are looking at a good product in general for all the aspects. Also, I can mention 4 tracks simultaneously being recorded, and the 2 backup tracks, so 6 tracks are actually recorded. There are some cons. Let's say the first one that I would mention is that there is no app or no wireless remote control, and so sometimes you mount the recorder onto a stand or in an awkward position, it's not always comfortable to look at the display and to change settings and to press buttons. There is a wired remote control, but just for the basic function like record, stop and play, and enable inputs, but you cannot change settings, you cannot see remotely the level of recordings, and so this can be uncomfortable in certain situations. There are other limitations, minor limitations, like when you want to record 96 kilohertz of sampling rate, you have to stick with 2 channels, not 4 channels. 4 channels require maximum sampling rate of 48 kilohertz, but it's the quality of a DVD, so I don't see it as a major limitation. And the SD card, as we said before earlier, has a maximum capacity of 32 gigabytes. It is not a lot. And last, the USB port is not a USB-C, but this model is not a recent one, and so that's why it does not provide a USB port. And now let's look at the competition. So instead of the Zoom H5, which model could we look at? And in first place, we can look at other models of the H line of Zoom. As I said before, the H stands for handy. Recorders comprises a number of different recorders, and the H5 sits in between, and I think it's the best compromise for feature, functionality and quality without being too heavy, too big. But you can also look at the other models, the H6 and H8, that is even higher rank. And apart from the H line of Zoom, the direct competitor is Tascam, that builds recorders and microphones, mainly recorders, and the direct competitor for the Zoom H5 is the Tascam DR-40x. This is really very similar to our Zoom, 4 tracks being recorded with a built-in stereo mic, with 2 external inputs with phantom powers and so on. So let's look at the differences between these 2 models, and let's start from what the Zoom is better than the Tascam. For sure, flexibility in changing the mic capsule, we already said it many times, and that's really a major advantage with respect to the Tascam. Then the quality of the preamps, the quality that you can hear when you connect external mic, it's noticeable better in the Zoom, because the noise that the Zoom introduces with external mic it is lower than the noise of the Tascam. Someone also measured the noise and tested that the Zoom has minus 120 dBu of noise, and the higher negative number, the best is the quality, so the lowest is the noise. So minus 120 dBu is the noise in Zoom, while in the Tascam it was measured as being 108, so 12 dBu more noise in the Tascam. That's why you cannot connect a dynamic microphone to the Tascam with good results, since a dynamic microphone needs a lot of amplification, and being the preamp a bit noisy, as we are saying, you can hear the noise. There is no problem in using condenser microphone that need less amplification, but with the dynamic external mic with the Tascam, the noise is really high. It's not perfect in the Zoom. There are even better preamps, of course, but it's definitely better in the Zoom. Then the Zoom has 2 outputs, one for headphones and the other for line outs, and that enables you to simultaneously record the audio into the camera and listen to what is being recorded with your headphones. You can have the backup tracks with lower volumes while recording 4 tracks. You have turnable knobs for volumes, and that's quite useful because on the other side in the Tascam having to push physical buttons to change volumes is slower, and also you probably interfere with the recording because the click on the buttons will be recorded. And the build quality is better in the zoom for sure, and also the limiter that is one of the features of the zoom enables you to prevent from clipping when the sound becomes too loud. The Tascam also provides namely a limiter, but there's a trick, because it's a digital limiter. Information being written into the file are squeezed, are lowered. There is no limitation in the amplification of the sound when the limiters gets in, and so it's really not very useful. It's almost a fake limiter in the Tascam. Nevertheless, the Tascam has some points. It enables usage of more than 32 gigabytes of SD card, up to 128 gigabytes. It can record 4 tracks with 96 kilohertz of sampling rate, so the maximum quality, even if 48 kilohertz is DVD quality, so I think it's really enough. It provides some more keys, physical keys, to jump to markers when you play your recorded sound. You can also change the configuration of the 2 mics that are by default in the XY configuration, like the zoom, where the 2 capsules sits very close together. But you can open the 2 capsules and point them outwards. That amplifies the stereo effect, but it can introduce a small difference in phase of the sounds that's hard to perceive. Also, there is a reverb effect in the Tascam. I don't think it's very useful, because typically all the post-processing, all the effects will be done in post-production on your PC, since then you can have the best quality. And in fact, the zoom that included reverb and other type of effects in the model H4 Pro gave up in including effects in the H5 model. So having internal effect can be useful if you don't you make post-processing. You need real-time effect, and you don't have external effect that typically are more powerful and more flexible than what can be done in a small handy recorder. Anyway, it's a feature that is available in the Tascam. And also the Tascam has a longer battery life, 18 hours, but it uses 3 AA battery, while the Zoom employs just 2 batteries, so of course the Tascam has a longer battery life. Wrapping up, I think that I would suggest definitely the Zoom for the quality with respect to the Tascam. If you are interested in looking at the Tascam, it's a competitor that can provide some more features on some aspects, but the quality is a bit lower, and so I would not advise to buy the Tascam with respect to the Zoom. And that concludes this review. I hope you find it interesting, and if so, you can subscribe to the channel, or if you have a question or comments, you can put it in the comments below. And thanks, and see you at the next review.